your pick in.
Oh, crap.
I left a space for it, but if you could put the link and such.
Well, it was sent to my email today. I've never done DTNS.
Oh, what an asshole.
No. I've been pretty bad at podcasting.
There I was worrying about saying bad words.
Ash. He said ash. Oh.
Yeah.
Ah.
Where you put your ash in the hole.
30 days in the hole.
Yeah, I'm not on camera, so it doesn't count.
Is that right? Is that how that works?
It's that's the hole in the sheet of podcasting.
That's the ash hole.
The ash hole.
And now the video is on a delay. I'm gonna drop out.
Drop out and come back real quick. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rounsaville.
Yep.
Do you have any questions?
I'm just reading over it right now.
Okay, cool. Very good. Mr. Chang, do you still have control?
Yes. I will bow it at 2. Just a reminder. And I will shut my audio.
What? What is
All right, guys.
happening?
I'm going to drop out. Good
All
luck.
right. Thanks, Justin.
Bye.
Bye.
There was
Okay, how
an
you doing,
error
Patrick?
Loading my app, but it's working. I'm not going to touch anything.
All right, as long as it's working for now.
Okay.
Everyone together? Everyone need anything?
Is this true data not jive with ComScores?
Yes, Tune. Tune has a different bit of data. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks very different, though.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things we can talk about.
All right. Fair enough.
And Patrick, probably gonna. I'll start by introducing some of these numbers, not all of them, and then I'll say, and so you had this question, and then you kind of explain the bit. Does that work?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. I will wing it, as I always do.
You're the best.
Around.
Nothing's ever gonna bring you down. All right, let's get going. You guys ready?
Yeah.
I was born ready.
Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, September 20th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, as he does most Tuesdays, Mr. Patrick Beja is back, still in Paris, France. We learned in the pre-show that you are a Parisian, not a Parisian.
I'm trying to give the word a little bit more of a badass
it's working.
sounding name. I don't know if it's, but I'm trying it out. We'll see what happens. If it works out in this audience, we'll expand it worldwide. Basically, we're doing the A/B testing, and you're the...
Okay, yes, let us know what you think. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Also joining us because Patrick has some questions about apps. Are apps still exciting? Are they fun? Has the bloom gone off the app rose? And so we decided to ask our friend Brett Rounsaville, who is also the proprietor of the Mission Pick app, on the show. How's it going, Brett?
Great. How have you guys been? It's been a dog's age.
Yeah, it has been. Thanks for taking the time today. If you're watching the video, you may recognize that Brett is over at Justin Robert Young's set. So thanks to Justin for lending that as well.
Yeah.
We are going to get to that app conversation in first, I want to tell you, SanDisk showed off a prototype for a 1 terabyte SD card. Not going to be able to buy it anytime soon, but a terabyte SD card is in your future. Now, here are some more top stories. Apple made macOS Sierra available for general download Tuesday, so if you didn't already get the beta, you can now officially get the official release, and it officially was taking me like 8 hours to download it, so it's getting hammered right at this moment. Big addition is Siri for the desktop, available as an app for the dock and showing up in the menu bar. Also, macOS Sierra lets you sync your desktop and documents folders with iCloud, optimize some storage. It uses iCloud for that as well. Puts Apple Pay in Safari, so you can use it on the web. Gives you the option for tabs in more apps, picture-in-picture in Safari, real-time collaboration in iWork apps. You can also unlock your OS X machine with Apple Watch. You can use that watch as a second-factor authentication with OS X, or I'm sorry, Mac OS. And those of you frustrated by the lack of stickers in iMessage on the desktop will be frustrated less. You can only view them, though. You cannot send the stickers, but at least they won't show up as a separate attachment. They'll actually stick to the thing they were meant to stick to. A lot of people are viewing this as sort of a very mundane operating system update. Patrick, what do you think?
I really enjoyed iOS 10 more than I thought I would, so I'm willing to be surprised by Sierra. Of course, I'm going to be doing the dance of, am I going to install it and risk all my things getting broken? So I don't know when I'm going to do it. But, I mean, Siri is the splashy feature that makes a lot of noise, literally. I think the bigger one is Apple Pay on the web, though. That gives a lot of people access to other people's wallets in a very convenient manner. I believe, was it Wired or Ars Technica that made an article saying this is the big one and it's the most important update? And I agree with them. Just not needing to enter all of your credit card information to pay for something is significant, I think.
And who knows, if we ever get new Macs, they might have fingerprint sensors on them. That's been one of the rumors that's been kicking around out there. That would feed into that as well. I'm sure I will play around with Siri, but my guess is I won't use it a whole lot more than I already use it on iOS. So I kind of feel like you're right that that's a splashy part of this announcement, but the jury's still out on how many people are going to use it and how often, how integral that will be on the desktop. Brett, do you use OS 10 or Mac OS now?
I do, yeah. I feel like the most interesting part of this story is that Apple is finally retiring the term OS X. There's not a lot of software companies out there that will claim to be on the same version of software for 12 years now. That's
yeah, and they're not moving to, 11. They're just,
Yeah.
and it's a very Apple move to say, you know what, we're just going to have names because version numbers really don't mean anything. And Windows just skipped 9 because they just thought it sounded better to have Windows 10. And so at that same time, you see Apple just pulling away 10. Like, 10 doesn't matter. 10's been devalued now, so we're just not going to use it anymore.
And we don't want one.
Kind of sneaky.
It seems likely as well that Windows is going to stay on 10 for a good long while. So
yeah, my guess is what Windows does is a similar thing where they just eventually retire the number, and it's just Windows.
What do they use, though? What do they use for Windows?
They tried to do that with Vista and XP, right? Like, they went away from numbers, came back, skipped one. The number is almost completely meaningless at this point.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Patrick. Sorry.
They were using animal names for the code names for the versions of Windows. I think they should do that. But just, choose funny animals like Windows platypus or, I don't know, Windows hummingbird. That's kind of cool.
Well, that's like Jaguar, and they would just be accused of ripping off Apple at that point, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, maybe. So, okay, choose something else.
Anyway.
I know. They could choose the names of other OSs. That would be really
so Windows OS Warp,
for example.
OS 2 Warp,
OS Next,
Windows Debian,
Windows B. These kinds of things.
Yeah, I don't know that they need names anymore. Honestly, I guess they need names for the major update, like the anniversary update that we're getting. But I have a feeling that with Mac OS, we're just going to get a new update every year, and they're going to call it something based on a national park, apparently. And for Windows, we'll just be getting major updates, but we won't be getting boxed new versions of Windows for a long time.
Point of order. Sierra is actually a national forest, not a national park.
Ah, fair enough. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, we might get the year, possibly, but I think Big Jim in the chat room has it. Use dinosaur names. Windows Velociraptor.
That is a
Windows
good way.
Windows Diplodocus.
Yeah. Oh, Sierra? Yeah, Sierra was torn apart by Velociraptors.
The only way to better guarantee a high usage from like 80s and 90s kids is by licensing with Hasbro and naming them after Transformers.
Oh my God.
I think it tells you everything you need to know about macOS Sierra that we sort of said, hey, these are neat features, and then immediately moved on to coming up with new names for operating systems.
Right.
All right, so let's move on with this other piece of news. Google sent out invitations Pacific October 4th at Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco. A teaser video for the event shows the Google search box stretched into a smartphone-shaped rectangle. The event will be live streamed on YouTube. Rumors have expected 2 new phones, the Daydream VR device, a 4K Chromecast, and an Amazon Echo competitor to possibly be announced. Android Police has some leaked pictures of what they say are the new 5-inch and 5.5 inches Pixel phones. And I believe there was a rumor for a Pixel tablet as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's guaranteed almost that we are going to get a phone. I actually saw this teaser ad on television yesterday evening. My wife was watching live television on NBC, and they played this ad. So that's the first time I've seen an announcement tease in primetime television, and it was this what you're talking about, where they just show a phone-sized device. So they are definitely going to introduce a phone. It sounds like it's going to be under the Pixel brand, and this will be a more Google-owned device than the Nexuses were, which were always sort of billed as Google authorized but built by somebody else. Supposedly they're going to have the G logo on them instead of a brand name like Pixel, and I don't know. I mean, what do you guys guess? What else will we see? Will it just be the 2 phones, or do you think we'll get this cavalcade of hardware?
Maybe they're just trolling us and they're not going to announce a phone. And they're going to be like, what phone? Why? No.
I don't think so. No, really? You think they would do that?
Okay. No, of course. It's going to be at least one phone, yeah.
I didn't watch the video. I only listened to the audio, and I thought for sure we were going to get the Google update to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Right, because they play that song from the opening.
I got super excited about it, and then clicked over and was like, oh, it's a phone. All right, well, that's good to know. No, legitimately, the thing I'm most excited about is Google's foray into like the connected home devices, like Amazon Echo. If they come out with something like that, I love my Amazon Echo. I would happily buy a Google one to keep Alexa company. I feel like she deserves it.
And they would just talk to each other and chat. Yeah.
Like gossip.
The day these things start happening, it will be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I already tried to get Cortana to talk to Alexa, and they just won't carry on a conversation. Maybe Google will be nicer. My wife will use Cortana. She loves Cortana, thinks Cortana is really nice, hates Alexa.
Really?
Yeah, will not use the Amazon Echo.
I don't like how dumb Alexa is if you ask her, like, trivia or something, but I do appreciate how well she does the things she's specifically made to do.
We asked Cortana what we should have for dinner, and Cortana said, well, do you want to turn the oven on or not? Oh, you don't? Well, how about a salad? You could start with some lettuce, maybe some beans. It was very helpful. We asked Alexa, and she said, I don't really have an answer to that.
Also, you just turned on Justin's Echo.
Sorry, I probably turned on a lot of people's.
By the way, she didn't understand the question you asked.
I'm sure she didn't. Apologies to everyone. I am excited to get back to the main announcement. I am excited about Pixel phones because I have a Pixel C, thanks to a listener in the audience, that I love. Now, the Pixel C, I think, was mismarketed because they made a big deal about the keyboard and the fact that now with Android Marshmallow you can do 2 things on at once, and they sort of build it as a laptop replacement, which I don't think it is, and I don't use it for that, but it is in every way as good of a tablet as an iPad, which is the first time I can really say that about an Android tablet. The Nexus 7 was nice, but mostly because of the form factor for me, whereas the Pixel C is great. So if they can bring that to phones, I think we could be looking at some really solid smartphone competitors in a world where a new smartphone is not nearly as exciting as it used to be.
Right.
It definitely seems like they might be going, from everything we've heard and the rumors, they're going what is, being called the Apple model, which is they're getting the design and getting someone else to build it. Obviously, they don't have the facilities, but it seems that like it will be a fully Google branded thing, and that is definitely something to be excited about. It would be a pure Android experience of some kind, even more so than the Nexus devices.
I
It's interesting to see if it plays into one of our later stories about their antitrust issue.
Yeah, and it does. U.S. Department of Transportation released its federal automated vehicles policy, outlining 15 safety assessment objectives that manufacturers must meet. Guidelines cover details on not only how the cars function, but how they record data, what happens when they crash, how they protect themselves against hacking, and quote, how vehicles are programmed to address conflict dilemmas on the road. The department plans on publishing the responses they receive in an annual report, and the department is also seeking pre-market approval of autonomous cars. They don't have pre-market approval of most cars right now, and post-market regulation of over-the-air software updates. The policy also suggests a model for state regulations on how to inspect and license self-driving cars, as well as law enforcement and insurance considerations. That's something that needed because right now the states vary pretty widely in how they regulate these, so there's a movement to want to kind of standardize that to make them very similar. States can determine their own variations, but they want to keep them pretty close. Public can comment for the next 60 days, and the department will update the guidelines annually.
So I know that, I'm a European, and so I am obviously a lover of big government, and many listeners will think that I'm crazy, but I think this is probably a good thing. We're in a time where the automated vehicles are kind of all over the place, and we do need some rules, not just to make sure that no one is doing something silly, which certainly, we have a few big actors right now which are very careful about what they're doing. It might not last, but also to give a little bit of certainty in the industry, which I believe can also help in its development. So, and the way they're doing it with, comments as many institutions have done in the past, and an annual revision of the guidelines seems to be the way to do it. Hopefully we won't need that for the next 50 years, but I think for the next few years it's positive.
Well, they have similar regulations for cars with humans in them. One of the big needs for this is all of the regulations assume a human is at the wheel. And so there really isn't a good way to apply those rules to something that doesn't have the human at the wheel, because the current regulations say if there's not a human at the wheel, the car better be parked and off. And so we need to revise that. And this, to me, is the first step in saying, okay, here's what we think the rules should be. We've definitely met with stakeholders to develop this, but let's get some public comment on it as well. Let's get some transparency from the companies so that we can all see what's happening in this field as it rolls out. I compare this to what the FAA did with quadcopters and UAVs, and it feels, and I know that it's unfair, these are apples and oranges, but this feels like it is ahead of the game. We don't have but a few autonomous cars on the road right now. So this is the right time to say, all right, let's make a stab at regulations, see how they fit as we go along, rather than trying to put the horse back in the barn later after the thunderstorm came and let the horse out who's mad because there are self-driving cars.
I think the interesting take on this is that I don't disagree with it being a great idea governmentally, but I think the problem with government often is not whether or not they have good ideas, but whether or not they have good execution. And this is a situation where there are a very limited number of people who are well-versed in autonomous cars and the technology involved. And now the government has to fight for those people if they want to have that same knowledge. They're going to be going up against Google and Apple budgets to try and keep people in-house.
No, that's a really good point. Or at least figure out how to leverage that expertise, as even Carnegie Mellon can attest. People in the academic world who are usually borrowed by government for that sort of thing are increasingly being hired away into the private sector.
Right.
All right. The RIAA reports music sales in the first half of 2016 rose 8.1% to $3.4 billion. Streaming drove most of the growth, rising 57% to $1.6 billion, accounting for half of the industry's sales. Paid subscriptions accounted for $1.01 billion of that number. Physical sales tumbled 14%, while downloads also shrank. The music industry is on pace to experience 2 consecutive years of growth for the first time since 1998 and 1999.
So get ready for the spin, folks, of how this doesn't mean the music industry has recovered yet, which is part truth. It hasn't actually recovered. We still got to make it through the second half of this year, and it's still just 2 years of minimal growth. We're not back to the peak yet, but all of this sturm and drang about streaming music services, it has been my opinion for years that it was all because the scale wasn't there yet. And the scale is starting to get there, and it's starting to really generate real money for the music industry.
I mean, definitely we're not back where we were before, but you're right. The biggest element of this is the streaming aspect, and 8.1% in half a year, that is significant growth. I mean, it's going to be hard to spin it into things aren't going well. They're not as good as they used to be, but that growth is not insignificant.
Piracy. There's still piracy. Also, they're making billions of dollars, and we're just growing 8%. Billions and piracy. Also, did I mention piracy?
Oh, do you write speeches for the RIAA?
Yes, that was taken from a speech I've been working on for them.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. I've never seen all of these stats laid out in a graph so beautifully before, and it really makes it look like this shrinking of the music industry is actually more of a blip than anything else. It was less that it shrunk and more that they got really lucky in the early 90s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, iTunes is often blamed for, stealing all of the attention, but they also were able to prop up the music industry when piracy was a much bigger threat than it is now. And in this Bloomberg article, by the way, they point out that the general one-year subscription to a streaming service that more and more people are using, not just the early adopters, is around $120, and that is more than the average consumer spent on CDs in a year, even at the peak of the music industry. So it is a very positive outlook for the RA.
I think, yeah, for the people who aren't seeing the graph, the decline was from the mid-2000s to late 2000s, maybe 2008, 2009. Since 2010, it's been roughly stable. I mean, a little bit down, but really more or less stable. And it's about at the levels of 1990. So, it's not like music didn't exist before 1990. And that's where we've been after that horrendous tumble from the, terrible age of the internet that destroyed the industry. So
and what you
puts it into perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What you want to see as an industry is that line continues to grow from the 90s up. And so the fact that we've only gotten back to the 90s, they look at it and say, yeah, but we should be much farther if things had going well. We should never have declined, and we should be much farther ahead, plus inflation, et cetera. So
yeah, of course. The point is, it's a different thing saying, business hasn't kept growing, which is indisputable, and musicians are going to have to, live in the street and can't make any money because of piracy. Absolutely. When music is dying is basically the message we've been sold. When this is what was happening, the level of industry size that we had in the 90s, and bigger than everything until the 90s. So
that was the song they were singing. Twilio provides software that lets developers build voice, video, or text messaging feature into apps. We've talked about it before on DTNS here and there. It's an enterprise level thing. So WhatsApp uses it, Uber uses it, Airbnb uses it. Twilio has acquired the team that was mainly behind the Corrento open source project in Madrid. They also have some proprietary tech that they built for a group video conferencing product that did file transfer, desktop sharing, and chat without the need of a plugin. So Twilio CEO Jeff Lawson said this team will be the basis of all of our next generation cloud-based media services. Twilio plans to develop augmented reality and facial recognition video applications. Even if you don't know Twilio, you likely have used it at some point in someone else's app, and the idea that they are going to continue to forge ahead and provide augmented reality, facial recognition, object recognition means that in these chat apps and these customer service apps that you use, you're going to see that kind of machine intelligence popping up on par with the sort of thing that you're expecting out of Google Assistant or Siri or et cetera.
A lot to say about that. Although my comment would be Twilio is a funny name. That is so typical of there are no names left. A few years ago that we saw a lot of those.
Really?
That's
You
my
pick on
insight.
Twilio?
It's actually really exciting from a developer perspective. Like we've seen this trend towards libraries and SDKs. They're really driving down the costs for development. Obviously, we're building stuff that took 20 or 30 people to build, like even 8 years ago. And the fact that there are more of these coming out is really exciting. I think augmented reality is kind of a story hook more than a feature. But the messaging stuff, any libraries that you can give to developers for a reduced rate because someone else built it is awesome.
I could see where Mission Pick might take advantage of some kind of image recognition. There's all kinds of ways that you could use that if it was affordable and easy to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the messaging, that's all very exciting stuff as far as I'm concerned. I can't wait to take a look at it.
You know what, guys? I would really have appreciated if you didn't have an insightful comment after making fun of the name. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Now you can.
Not to disparage you, Patrick. Twilio is a really silly name.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Let's talk about what the European Commission is up to get back at us.
The European Commission, well, it said on Tuesday that it would give Google more time to respond to charges that it abused its dominant position in mobile operating systems regarding bundling of Google services on Android. Google has until October 7th. This is the third deadline extension. Google has separate deadlines for other charges. October 13th is the deadline to respond to accusations of favoring its own shipping services in search, and October 5th for blocking competitors in search advertising.
They really are after Google.
Funny story to me. It's the kind of thing where, like, yes, antitrust probably has its place, but this is arguably the one situation where you want them to do what they're trying to do. Like, what they're saying is, we don't want you to force these carriers to use best-in-class search. We want them to be able to force Verizon search onto the users or something.
Well, and what gets me is that Google says you can use Android without our apps. We only put these restrictions in if you want to use our apps. And what the EU is saying is, yes, but your apps are so dominant in the marketplace, that's like not offering a choice.
I think the exact issue is that the bundling of all of the Google services, which means the App Store cannot be used if you don't also have the other Google services, meaning, Gmail, all of those. And there are issues where the monopoly position does apply, especially with Google, especially in Europe. This one, I just don't understand. Really, what you want Google to enable the use of the Google App Store without bundling of the other apps? That doesn't compute. If you don't want, Android, as you were saying, Brett, is available for everyone. And you can use that operating system with your own service. It's the most open one there is. You can really do whatever you want with it. You can even fork it to make it completely different. There are moments where, I was joking that I'm European and so blah, blah, blah. There are moments when things that the European Commission and the European Union do that make me want to pull my hair out. And this is one of them.
It seems like one of those things where they're just really frustrated that there isn't a European company that does it as well as Google does.
Well, and they're even more successful. Google search is more dominant in Europe than other parts of the world. Android, especially with the decline of Windows Phone, is more dominant than it is in many other parts of the world. So it's an acute problem in Europe for sure.
And again, there are certainly some of those issues and some of those investigations that I personally feel can be justified. This one doesn't seem like one.
Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them and help us make the lineup every day at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That's a look at our top stories. All right, so new data from ComScore came out last Friday showing that in the 3-month span between April and June, 49% of U.S. smartphone users did not download any apps in each month. 49%. Now, that's actually an improvement from the approximately 66% who didn't download apps in a 3-month period 2 years ago, though ComScore says we've changed our methods, we've improved them quite a lot. You really can't compare those two studies. But it's showing that people on average aren't downloading a lot of apps. Of the people who do download apps, the average number downloaded per person is 3.5. 13% of smartphone owners account for more than 50% of all the apps downloaded. And even if you go to a more favorable study like Tune, a company that works in the mobile app advertising market, they found that 75% of smartphone owners downloaded at least one app a month, but that still leaves 25% that work. This is the statistics that are behind a question that Patrick and I were talking about earlier today. Patrick, you're sort of asking about the search for apps. What's your question?
So basically, I do an app recommendation a podcast in French, so I follow this market very closely, and certainly there's been, in the first few years after the app stores arrived, a lot of excitement. And I think anyone reasonable would accept that kind of excitement to die down a little bit, but it feels to me like it's gone beyond the idea that just apps have become commoditized and we don't really think of them as much. I'm wondering if there isn't kind of a boring aspect of apps now. We don't have the super new exciting app that's coming out, and everyone's not looking, even in our communities, which are, very tech-centric and aware of all of this. We're not going around exchanging tips about, the hottest new app or so I'm wondering if apps aren't not on the decline. Well, they have declined for sure. I'm not saying they're going away, but have they become boring? I guess is my question from a consumer point of view, and definitely from a developer point of view. Are we seeing a little bit less excitement for the apps in general?
So, Brett, you're on the front lines of this with an app that is successful, and lots of apps are still successful. I don't think Patrick's saying that, like he said, the apps are dying, but do you see a difference in the way people get excited about apps?
Yeah, I actually think there's a lot going on there. I think a big part of it is that all of the growth we're seeing in apps is in games. So I would suspect that the majority of those people who are downloading 2 or more a month are downloading games. And the one thing that makes that so much easier, especially in the Apple app store, is that they're featuring new games every day, which leads to the second big component of it, which I think is kind of the nichification of apps, for lack of a better term. There's a few big apps up there that we all use. I bet if we all took a picture of our home screens, we'd all have the same 5 or 6 apps on there. And then if we went to our second page, it would be completely different for everyone. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. When you have 50,000 apps going up a month or a day or whatever it is, then you're going to see this fracturing of the app store.
Patrick, what do you think?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was having issues with my Parisian internet. No, I mean,
a Parisian for your internet.
I agree. I think there's definitely the apps that we're using. There are the few. Everyone has Facebook, Twitter. Well, Twitter, maybe not everyone, but Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and a couple of others, and the rest of the exciting movement in the app stores seem to be around games. And then every once in a while, there's an Uber that comes up, but that's not really the app. It's more of the service as a whole. I guess a question would be, when was the last time you got an app that got you really excited?
Yeah, I think that's it exactly. Is those exciting apps are still out there, but they have to do something completely different or add such a value add to something you're already doing. We're already capable of doing the things we need to do, which is message people, talk to people, send photos. The things that get people excited are the ones that do that in like a slightly different way. Like I would argue the biggest, most useless, most exciting app in recent memory is Bitmoji. That's the one where you were doing something a little bit different on top of something that we already have something that does really well.
It's basically all communication apps. Again, remember the early days of the app stores. We had like things to measure levels to see if your table was flat. There were apps that would all of these quirky, silly little things. Did we realize that we don't need them? Or did we just do everything and now we're done because everything's been done?
Well, I think that's exactly it, that we didn't need those. And what we were excited about in those moments was not the app at all, but the phone. Suddenly my phone has a lighter on it that I can blow out. That's super exciting. But it's the technology of the phone that's exciting, not the app. Granted, someone still made a bucket of money off of making a lighter app.
Well, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm looking at my phone. Some of the recent apps that I have installed are Memrise, a foreign language learning app that is not particularly revolutionary, but it has an advanced language system that I liked and went a little more advanced than Duolingo. So that's why I got it. But it's incremental, right? It's not something I'm raving about. Pokemon Go, it's a game. It's also a game that, isn't about the app. It's about the game that I play. Google Trips, which just came out yesterday, I downloaded to try. And again, that's about a service, so to speak, of organizing your information. And I think this goes to what Brett's talking about. We're no longer excited about what a phone can do. We're now on to the level that we are with our desktops and laptops, which is it doesn't really matter that the app takes advantage of some new thing in our computer. It matters, like, is this doing something useful for me?
So what you guys are saying is that the apps weren't really about the apps. I mean, the boom, the apps boom. I'm not talking about the Galaxy Note 7 here.
Too soon.
That was me. The apps boom wasn't really about the apps. It was about the phones. And since the phones have become commoditized, we've realized that there wasn't. I mean, let's not be too extreme. Of course, the apps are huge, and it's a big ecosystem, and it's a big industry. Of course. But it's just not as exciting because it was so tied to the phones that now that the phones have become, a little bit more meh, the apps have become meh with the phones. Does that mean that at some point in the future, if there's some new functionalities in the phones, we're going to get excited about the apps again?
Yeah, well, you put that Retina scan that Samsung added. I'm seeing people getting really excited over the fact that they can now do Samsung Pay with their eyes. And they're only excited about Samsung Pay in that instance because there's a new function on the phone. I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think it was sort of a, hey, we've got a new toy. Let's see what it can do. We figured out what it's good at. And now we're on to the more practical use of that tool.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the magic of the early days of the marriage is gone, and now it's just routine.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
I don't think it's routine. I think you still married a really attractive lady who is great at cooking, and sometimes she makes a really good meal that you weren't expecting.
Wow, stereotyping, sexism. That is a terrible analogy.
Well, it could be a man or a woman who married this cook. Doesn't really matter.
I was talking about me. I married my wife, and she is.
Or
that was a terrible story.
In all honesty, let's flip this around. You could have married a guy who was a horrible cook when you first married him 13 years ago, but in the intervening time has learned and actually makes some things you really like and ask him to make. And so that doesn't mean that you've lost excitement. It doesn't mean that new skills aren't popping up. It's just not that newness anymore.
Right. Yeah. And like, that's even the same thing with Pokemon Go, to leave behind all these really awkward metaphors. That was a thing that, like, I would say so many of the people that got excited about it because of the AR. And then so many of those people shut off the AR within 2 days of use.
Yeah.
Like Pokemon Go is fine and it's fun, but what's exciting is the new.
Yeah, and it's the new things are farther and farther apart as we get used to what these phones can do.
Right. So I guess
the growth becomes incremental instead of suddenly going from a flip phone to a supercomputer in your pocket.
The job is now the phone manufacturers to get us. I mean,
I don't know. Is there a requirement that we have to be excited?
Maybe not. I mean, it's just that it was one of those moments where we thought everything was becoming apps, and the apps were
so glad
the all
that's
end all of all of it.
I would say that everything is still becoming apps, or at least everything is becoming software in some regard or another. Even if it's, I mean, the latest app I downloaded was the new remote for the Apple TV. Like my computer, it's leaking onto my TV.
Yeah, well, and I think we should be we lost sight of what the web can do. If you remember, though, a lot of those early apps were just websites in a wrapper, and thankfully that is rare now. And we're starting to rediscover as HTML5 gets more competitive as well. We're starting to rediscover what an open platform like the web is good for, and what software is good for, and they're good for different things.
I guess apps are. I would say apps are less exciting, but as you were saying, it's maybe not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, there's an app that you're excited about. It's our pick of the day. Patrick, what do you got for us?
So it's an app and a service, as we were saying. It's something called Fleeks.tv, Fleex.tv. And it's going to be maybe not super useful to the people listening now because you already speak English. But for people who want to learn, it's a service that allows you to overlay video services on the web. They do it for YouTube, Netflix, TED.com, and one or two others, with subtitles. And they can use subtitles in French, English, a lot of languages, and English. The service is to learn English. But the really interesting thing that they can do is that they can display both, or, they can display English or French or another language again, or both at the same time, or switch between English and French when the things that are being said are on different levels of difficulty. So if it's easy enough, you're going to have the English that you're trying to learn. If it becomes a little bit too hard, you're going to have your native language that you are obviously more comfortable with. So I've tried it for a little bit. It's really well done. It does on your computer, it doesn't work everywhere. Obviously, it has an app. It works on the PC for Netflix, for example, PC or Mac, through the website. But it seems like a genius idea. Just watch the thing you enjoy, the thing you want to have fun with, and have that comfort of having the subtitles that you can understand when you can, or the ones that you want to learn when it's too difficult. And I just actually thought that you can probably use it for learning other languages as well. Just set it to French and English, and set it to the fact that you don't understand English at all, so you're going to have a lot of it in French. That could work, I suppose.
Yeah, I would like it to be avowedly for learning French or learning Spanish or something like that. I think that would be cool. And maybe if it does well enough is being marketed as an English language tool, they'll add that functionality. That'd be great. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Got a few messages to get to before we're out of here. Yesterday, we were talking about the idea of an endless newbie, the fact that as tech continues to advance faster and faster, it's harder and harder to be experienced at things. Mike Verduzco just finished his dissertation earlier this year focusing on digital literacy. He said, yeah, for sure, faculty are resistant to change because they just learned the last version, but students also can be disadvantaged when it comes to skills and knowledge to be productive through technology. For example, taking advantage of the feature of a word processor to minimize the effort to complete a quality document to submit. Sounds like some people in his classes didn't hand in very good papers. He said they can be just as technophobic as some of the faculty. Alan said, I liken the endless newbie phenomenon to the peak TV phenomenon. People will have to pick and choose what technology to learn and adapt. And Rich from lovely Cleveland thinks we need an agent. He said, I could see a company offering an AI layer as a service that interacts with whatever software you have on a given device to achieve the goal set by the user.
I think at some point, when I realized how difficult it was for some people to learn how to use a VCR, which was, for the kids listening, a very easy to use device to record things on a tape, I realized there is no way that technology is going to be learnable by everyone. And that I agree. I think that some people, not just older people, are just not learning. They just don't like it. They don't want to spend the time required to learn it. And I agree with Rich, basically, that the only technology that will be that will enable everyone to use old technology is once AI is advanced enough that the interface you need to use it is just the regular conversational interface. So once we have, someone saying, "That's okay, Dave. I can do your
I'm sorry,
your
Dave.
document
I can't
for
do
you."
that.
Exactly. That will be the
the
time when the newbie problem is going to go away, not before.
Oh,
All right.
I'm not sure the newbie problem ever goes away. I think there's a large sect of society that's completely content with living the exact lives they're living now. Any new technology only brings added effort that they don't need to put out.
Yeah, and I think the pace of technological innovation brings the bar of who those people are along a little. So people that might have said, well, okay, I'm going to make the effort, just start to give up because they're constantly facing software updates and interface changes and even concepts that they just don't understand. Like, I think Snapchat is a great example of that, where people who I know are technology enthusiasts and take up technology just don't want to bother learning Snapchat because they just don't get it. And that's not even a hard thing.
I agree. I do think Snapchat was intentionally obscure, though. So it's kind of a special
think
case.
It was. No.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe not.
Wish that I could call Mission Pick intentionally obtuse. Like, that would be so great. Like, oh, no. Anything that you're having a hard time with,
That's on purpose.
I did that because I wanted to keep out the riffraff.
But that being said, the issue isn't that it's technology. The issue is that you have to learn something that you don't have to learn in everyday life. And that's why I think when AI is clever enough that you can use it with just conversational skills, anyone who can talk to anyone, who can have a conversation, is going to be able to use it. So that's why I'm saying at that point there won't be newbies, because you already know how to talk to people, and that's all the skills you're going to need, hopefully, at some point.
I think that it actually, if you're trying to think of a world where the newbie problem goes away, you have to go in the other direction. It has to be not an increment, like, it doesn't have to be an easier way to upgrade. It has to make your life harder by not upgrading. Like, you have to reach a point where, like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this thing, my life is going to be miserable, as opposed to like, oh, it's so easy now. Now I can do this one thing that I wasn't doing before.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting opposition point, which is like, yeah, you're going to be left behind. I know you don't think that Snapchat is worth your time, even though it has this crazy new AI interface, so you don't have to learn the interface anymore. But if you don't use it, the self-driving car won't come, and now your life is harder.
Right. I would even liken it to like actual literacy. Like, at some point, everyone was okay with not having the knowledge found in books because they could get it from their neighbor or whatever. And then sooner or later, books were everywhere. That was the only way to get it. You literally have to learn to read, or else you're left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is it for this episode of the Daily Tech News Show. Patrick, Beja, thank you again, as always. What do you got to tell folks about this week?
Let's tell them about Pixels, a show about video games and gaming news in general, which I had the immense pleasure of doing with Tom. Was it yesterday? Yes,
it was just yesterday morning. I know, it does feel a little longer because it was so early.
Yeah. So you could learn all about the PlayStation Pro, the Tokyo Games Show, and a bunch of other things if you go to FrenchSpin.com and look for the latest episode of Pixels. And aside from that, I'm not Patrick on Twitter and Facebook.
And you've been alluding to Mission Pick throughout the episode. Brett, tell folks about it, where they could find it, and how they could take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's on iPhone right now. It's Mission Pick, and it's an app where every day everyone gets the same new photo challenge. And then you take a photo that satisfies that challenge, and then the community votes the photos up and down and creates these leaderboards of like really stunning photography. And we have an awesome community there. It's really fun to participate. And if you checked it out at some point in the past and you haven't checked in within the last like 3 months or so, you're 100% missing out.
Go get it. Check it out. MissionPick.com. Do you have any updates on an Android version yet?
Yes, the update is as soon as someone hands us a pile of money, we will start coding away.
Excellent. There you go, Android fans. Hand them a pile of money, or at least get enough of your iOS users, friend users, to get on board.
Right.
If you are a fan of just the headlines of the day, don't forget about our headline show, Daily Tech Headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. We do that and this show entirely based on your support. If you want to know how to support the show, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. Huge thanks to everyone who does support the show. If you have $1 to spare, would absolutely help us out a ton if you would pledge it to us at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv, and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson and Chris Kohler from Wired. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show, you guys. Thank you for that.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Jeez. I'm getting kicked out of the studio, guys. It's been fun.
All right. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Justin, for letting Brett borrow the studio.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Fun. Thanks.
Bye.
I'm actually gonna go as well. My back is killing me, and bye, Justin. I just have to get up. Oh, look, it's a wild what?
While Justin appears.
Oh, he disappeared.
And he disappeared. My back is killing me. I have to get up.
All right. Yeah. Go lay down. Thank you, man.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Take care. Apocalypse Now. Perhaps.
Oh, you have to call it Windows Velociraptor. You have to. Okay, bye.
You have to call it.
Windows Velociraptor. Is that even on here? Because I don't even
see
care.
it.
I'll still use it. Windows Velociraptor.
I don't see it anywhere.
Well, it's the title anyway.
Windows Velociraptor.
Velociraptor.
They work in packs and they can open doors.
Oh yeah, it's packet switched. I just want to make sure I'm Velociraptor. Yep, I got that. Cool. All right. Well, Roger, do you need to go too?
Dude. I mean, if you don't mind me holding her.
Oh no, I don't mind. It's up to you. We can bug out though, since everybody else had to go. I thought you had a 2 o'clock out.
Yeah, this is it. So I
Oh.
wasn't sure where she would be at. So,
Okay, up to you.
Chris Kohler tomorrow, and then Lamar for Friday.
Yep. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Ellie.
Bye.